Hi, I'm Kyle Jones, and this is TECsperts, where Tech TV and the East Carolinian finalists come together to tell the fans about ECU sports. This episode is to preview the Pirates' season opener against Towson. New to TECsperts this year is Tyler Kellerbaugh. He is the beat writer for the East Carolinian's football program. This is Adam Decker, the East Carolinian's other football beat writer. This is Brian Woodkovich, the sports editor at the East Carolinian. This is Jesse Dill, the football editor at the East Carolinian. Corey Keenan is the Washington Daily News ECU football beat writer, also the East Carolinian's news editor. This year is going to be a big year for the East Carolina football program as they have lost historic quarterback Shane Carden, and just last week they lost the incumbent starter Curt Bankert. Now Tyler, you've been at every practice, so how is the replacement Kemp looking?
Yeah, Blake Kemp is looking pretty good. Coach McNeil talks pretty fondly about him. He's a lefty. He says he's smart, he can move well. But right behind him is Cody Keith, another junior who's been in the program for a few years. So Blake better step it up early, or else Cody might overtake it for the starting job.
Yeah, that could very well be the case. One thing to remember, though, is that Cody Keith did miss some time, about 2 weeks, with an ankle injury, and that came right around the same time period that Curt Bankert was named the starter and then subsequently got hurt. What ended up happening is Cody Keith came back from his ankle injury, ironically, the day that Curt Bankert went down with his torn ligament. So he is a little bit behind the curve in that sense, but I no doubt about it. If Blake Kemp goes out, throws 4 picks against Towson, why wouldn't you see Cody Keith go in the game?
I think Dave Nickel has some confidence in Keith. He's talked about his arm and some of his explosiveness on the field too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also the freshman John Jacobs. They're looking at trying to redshirt him, but he's a pretty highly touted recruit. So if worse comes worse, it might give the freshman a chance.
All right, so also that needs to be replaced is Breon Allen, the running back from last year who did most of the rushing last year. Now, Brian, you high on the running back coming in this year.
Yeah,
can you talk to us a little bit about
absolutely. And there's no reason not to be high about those guys. You got the senior Chris Harrison, you got Marquez Grayson, who's going to be a little banged up for a few weeks, so he's not going to be in there. But then you got behind Chris Harrison, you got the sophomore Anthony Scott, who really showed flashes of brilliance last year as a true freshman. A guy with a lot of speed, a lot of versatility, a guy who can catch out of the backfield and can block in the passing game. So he was really, he's a big factor. In this running game, it's really going to be a running back by committee kind of thing, but Chris Harrison as the senior, last year was the backup to Breon Allen, had a real breakout game against Temple. He's a reliable back. He's a guy that can kind of do everything. He's smart. It's going to be his last year in the system, and I think he's going to be the go-to guy. Running backs isn't going to be an issue for this team.
Sean Furlow, a true freshman as well, coming in this year. He's going to see some time probably with the first team out there even.
He's out for a few weeks.
This year's offense will probably feature a little more running, and Chris Harrison is a different kind of running back than we saw from Breon Allen. Chris Harrison, he's 6'3", he's a bigger, more physical runner, so that's something to look forward to.
If you look at Harrison's stats from last season, he led the team in rushing yards per attempt with 6.7, so he's shown he can be an explosive runner out there.
He's looked good in the scrimmages too. He busted a 57-yard touchdown run up the middle, so he's got some speed, he's got some power.
92-yard touchdown rush too in the first scrimmage. They took him out right after that, so that should tell you something. They don't want to get this guy hurt. He's going to be a big part of the team.
The important thing going forward for this offense this year is the departure of Lincoln Riley. How do you think the team will look under new offensive coordinator Dave Nickel, Corey?
Well, Dave Nickel's a guy that's been around the program for a few years now. He was an inside receivers coach for a couple of years before turning over to the offensive coordinator this season. And the comfortability level that the inside receivers have with him and the trust that they have in him is very important coming in. I mean, players like Isaiah Jones and Bryce Williams, who have worked with him, are very sold on him and his program that he has set up for the offense this year. So I think comfortability level is definitely high on him just because of how long he's been here and been working with the program. So I can't really imagine there's too much turnover in terms of schemes or other things like that. Nicholas said multiple times there are going to be some wrinkles with the offense that we haven't seen before under Lincoln Riley. But as far as turnover goes, I really don't think there's going to be that much with Dave Nickel.
Nickel has a lot of experience throughout his whole coaching tenure. He's been on 10 bowl eligible teams running the spread offense, so like you said, he's going to be incorporating almost the exact same things. Now, I think with Bankert, he was going to, try to take a couple more shots down the field, things like that, utilize Bankert's arm. Now with Blake Kemp, it'll probably be a very similar offense to last year, running the more slants, bubble screens, things like that.
Yeah, and I think Adam, you kind of touch on it there. Personnel is going to be an issue. It's a big thing. Lincoln Riley, he had 2 of the best players in ECU history, and now he's going into a pass-oriented attack with an unproven quarterback. and guys who, frankly, nobody expected to be starting this year. So he has to make do with that, and you can't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. It just does not work like that. So I think he's going to be a little bit behind the curve, and he's going to have to try to find an identity in that sense, maybe figuring out if it's maybe going to be a little more of a power run team or a spread run team, what it's going to be back there in the shotgun, because you do want to take as much pressure off of those quarterbacks as you can. Blake Kemp obviously is a guy that you don't want to just have him run around the pocket, running for his life, making mistakes because he's not quite as accustomed to the offense. Of course, he was on the team last year, was redshirted. He's kind of got that knowledge but no playing experience yet. So, I mean, that's going to be a big factor for Dave Nickel.
Just an interesting side note, Lincoln Riley was the wide receiving coach at Texas Tech when Ruffin McNeil was over there, and he ended up becoming the offensive coordinator and having great success. Dave Nickel, also a wide receiving coach before becoming the offensive coordinator.
So talk a little bit about the stability of the offensive line and the wide receivers and how important that's going to be this year. Jesse?
Well, for Kemp and Keith, they're coming into a system with a ton of weapons. I mean, you've got an offensive line, guys that are experienced, that can really protect the quarterback. And as wide receivers, you got guys like Jimmy Williams, Davon Grayson, not to mention Isaiah Jones, a guy who had 81 catches, second in the team last season.
Like you said with Jimmy Williams, he was a scout team walk-on, came onto the team, worked his way up the depth chart, things like that. I've been told multiple times by Dave Nickel, Ruffin McNeil, his hands have vastly improved, and he's got one of the best set of hands on the team, so he's definitely a dependable player.
Yeah, let's not forget about the Hog Mollies up front either. The offensive line, that's a group that hasn't lost a starter from last year, and a lot of people thought that group was going to be a weakness last year, and they performed very well. I mean, they kept Shane Carden protected in the pocket. They opened up running holes for Breon Allen, and they're going to be even stronger this year. They got a lot of experience on that line. They got a lot of talent, a lot of guys who know what they're doing. So I think that the offensive line is just as much a catalyst, in my opinion, especially given the uncertainty at quarterback as the receivers.
Yeah, they got 71 games of experience between all the guys on the offensive line, especially if they're instituting a slightly more run-heavy offense. They're going to be huge for determining the success of this team.
All right, so then something that wasn't really talked about last year for the team last year, but ECU had a very good defense last year, 38 total. So, and they lost a lot of stars this year. So what exactly should we expect from the defense this year, Jesse?
Well, up front, and the linebackers should be solid again. I think the biggest question is going to be with the secondary once again. You know, Rick Smith has some confidence in Josh Hawkins, who had 5 picks last year. But he's also mentioned that Hawkins, would take plays off at times. So he's questioned his motivation. But I feel like if Hawkins can be consistent and you got guys like Dominic Lennon, Rocco Scarfone out there, I mean, it should be an improvement over last season.
You know the front seven's going to be good. It's the secondary that's the big question. With Zeke Bigger anchoring the linebacking unit, Montese Overton, that's going to be one of the most intimidating linebacker units in the nation.
Let's talk a little bit about Towson, who's the actual opponent for this week. Adam?
Now, a lot of people seem to forget that just 2 years ago, Towson was in the national championship. They lost to North Dakota State in the FCS championship game. Now, they lost their best player at that time, Terrence West, to the NFL. So they had a new guy step on, Darius Victor, last year. 5.2 yards a carry. He averaged 108.8 yards a game. Had 12 touchdowns, touchdown a game, things like that. But Towson, as a team, they fell to 4-8. Now their quarterback, Connor Frazier, only threw for 1,499 yards last year. He had 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, but he was second on the team with 475 rushing yards. So it definitely seems that Towson's more of a run heavy. They're going to try to pound it down the Pirates' throat, things like that. James Smith, he's really stands out. For the Towson's defense, he's a middle linebacker. He had 99 tackles last year, 7 for a loss with 1 interception. He was a redshirt freshman last year. He earned all conference honors through that. He's a very key player to watch during this game. Now, another thing, both of Towson's starting wide receivers, they left last year, graduation transfers, things like that. But Jaquil Vay, a transfer from Maryland, just came in. He doesn't have to sit out because he's changing divisions, going down to the FCS. He had 4 starts with Maryland last year. Didn't really, that was because of injuries to Stephon Diggs and things like that. But Jaquil Vay is definitely an explosive player to watch out for. But Towson as a whole last year, like I said, they were 4-8. They only averaged 138 yards a game in passing, but 163 rushing yards. So definitely look for them to run the ball out with Darius Victor, 5'8". He's a quick, speedy, angry runner, things like that. But also look for maybe some read options, some option things like that with Connor Frazier with his legs. So.
Yeah, and I think that's going to pose a big challenge for the ECU defense because when you look at them historically, they have not performed all that well against read option teams or option teams in general. Teams and these FCS teams, I mean, they don't make their living off trying to oversize their opponents. It's all about speed. It's all about spreading defenses out and finding ways to find a weakness on their defense. And I think if you're ECU, you're maybe a little bit concerned about that. You look at what ODU did 2 years ago. They put quite a scare into the ECU faithful. I think it was a 3-point game at halftime, something like that. Their quarterback put up big numbers, and he was running all over them as well. So what we're looking at is maybe a Towson team that's going to try to outrun the ECU defense, for lack of a better word. Maybe try to get around the corner and see what they can do. So this game is going to tell you a lot about the linebackers and new faces on that linebacking front because they're going to be really active.
Well, like you said with the linebackers, we just talked about in the last segment, Zeke Baker's come back at 140 tackles last year. He's definitely going to be looking to stop Darius Smith there. Also have Monteese Overton, just speedy linebacker. And they'll try to be in the backfield, things like that. Another stat is that Ruffin McNeil and ECU programs on a 23-game winning streak when opening the season against the FCS team, so that's definitely something to look for.
Rick Smith's defenses always are great against stopping the run. I think Towson plays into ECU's strengths, especially with just being such a run-heavy offense. It's tough to see them testing ECU's questionable secondary.
Well, we say that, but then you think about what Navy's able to do. I mean, that's an all-running team. They've torn up Rick Smith. I mean, they've given Rick Smith nightmares, putting up 70 points a few years ago on this ECU team. So I think that there are ways to get around it. What ECU was good at last year was clogging the front of the line with Terry Williams, and he's gone now. So, finding ways to get to the backfield with these spread offenses, it's really hard. It is really hard.
Another key thing to look at is last year, Towson, all the film that ECU's looking at this year, they ran a 4-3 last year. They're switching over to a 3-4 this year. So, there could be some variations, different things that they're going to throw at ECU that ECU hasn't seen on film yet.
All right, so the big thing, too, that doesn't really get enough attention is special teams. And a lot of these guys who are starting now for ECU used to be special teamers. So what are we to look for on the special team side, Corey?
Well, ECU last year lost its all-time points leader in Warren Harvey. He graduated, and now there's a position battle at kicker right now between Davis Plowman, who had about 3 kicks last year, and Connor Torello. Now, both of them pretty unproven. We don't know too much about them.
I think it's going to be kind of funny because ECU fans were pretty much ready to run Warren Harvey out of town. I don't think they kind of realized how hard it is to have a consistent kicker. And while he may not have been consistent, he was a guy, like you said, their all-time points leader. He was a good kicker. He was fine. He missed some and kind of near the end of his career there maybe kind of slipped up a little bit. ECU fans wanted to run him out of town. I think this year they're going to be in for a rude awakening because they don't really know what they have at the kicker position. I don't even think the team knows what they have at the kicker position.
Agree. At the punter, you know what you have at the punter right now. Worth Gregory, a guy that can really flip the field, really help the team out in field position. An Alabama transfer, what you're getting right there. He's a great player and definitely going to be key to flipping field position this season.
We're coming almost to a close to the show. We're going to ask each and every one of you to name somebody and give us a little bit of a profile background on an impact player or a player to watch. So we're going to kick it off with Brian.
I think I'm going to go Bryce Williams, a tight end inside receiver, a guy that's really versatile, and a guy that can really be a security blanket for Blake Kemp or Cody Keith or whoever's in there throwing passes at the end of the game. I think that he's a great red zone target. It's really hard to throw in the red zone and to have a big body like that, a 6'6" guy. The dude that, he showed it last year. He had a lot of red zone. I think he got 5 or 6 touchdown passes or catches last year. So he's a guy I'm looking at. I think that he's going to provide a lot of stability to those quarterbacks that they're going to look to.
Tyler, who's yours?
Yeah, I think you got to go with Blake Kemp, the junior college transfer in his first start for the Pirates. Coming in expected to be a backup this season. We're going to get to see a lot about him and see if he's really the guy who can lead this team forward. I know Towson is not as intimidating as some of ECU's other opponents, but it's a good test to see how he runs the offense.
Now, Corey, who is your player to watch, your impact player this year?
My player to watch for the first week is going to be Terrell Stanley. First game back from that terrible car accident that he was in a couple years back. Missed the entire 2014 season. Finally getting his chance again now as a senior. And talking to other players on the team, they're very emotional and very excited for his return to the field. Just a guy that works very hard and always seems to have a smile on his face at practice. So he's going to be someone that's definitely going to be a little more excited than usual for this game.
Now, Jesse, who is your impact player to watch?
I'm going with Isaiah Jones for this game. I think he's going to step into the role that Hardy had, just kind of a safety net to throw to whenever because he's got great hands. Once again, 81 catches last year. I think the coaches are really going to want him to step up as far as a leader too for the team. You know, he's a junior. He's been around the system for a while, and he's definitely a player to look out for.
Now, Adam, who is your player to watch, your impact player?
Kind of touched on him a little bit earlier. Running back Chris Harrison, back up last year. You know, he's getting a shot this year, his senior year. 6'3", big frame guy, runs downhill. You know, but is a little quicker than most power runners. Things like that. The only thing that he really has to look out for is, like I said earlier, with Towson's middle linebacker James Smith. They lost a lot of their defensive linemen, things like that. So a lot of unproven players. And then also last year, Towson's defense just always seems to be on the field. Last year, it seemed like they got pounded. They had 6 different defensive players with 60-plus tackles, so it definitely looked like their defense struggles to get teams off the field, which will probably play in the hands of Chris Harrison.
So now we're going to get now to the nitty-gritty, the last part. We're going to go into predictions. Tyler?
I think we're looking at a 38-7 game. I think ECU blows them out as they should at home, season opener. I think the offense looks good. The defense steps up. Towson's not notorious for their defense, especially trying a new the 3-4 this year. They might be working out some kinks. So I think ECU takes it 38-7.
I think I'm going to go a little bit bold here. I'm going to go 27-14 ECU. I think ECU's got to work out the kinks. They got to try to get their offense going. I don't think it's all just going to come together overnight. So I think that maybe the offense is going to struggle a little bit, but I'm sure they'll pull away at the end. And then Towson, who knows, maybe they can put up a few points.
I'm going to go 31-7 ECU. I think, it's just the mismatch of an FBS team against an FCS team. The Pirate offense is probably going to be a little slow to start, but I think they'll be working things out throughout the game and start to pick things up a little bit towards the end.
I'm taking ECU 34-7. I mean, if you look what ECU did to NC Central last season with the season opener, I think it's definitely heavily skewed towards ECU this game.
I'm going to go 41-7. Everybody's predictions have kind of been in the same. Simply put, I just think that Towson's going to be overmatched. Whether the ECU offense is going to struggle a little bit to start, the ECU defense will be very dominant.
So no one's going with Towson? You know what? I'm going to be the guy to go with Towson. 18-15 Towson. Blake Kemp gets benched. All right. And
That was bold.
Blake Kemp. What else are you going to say? Blake Kemp gets injured in the first.
You've been waiting to say that.
all right. And this has been TECsperts. Thank you for joining and watching us this week. And look for us next week for the next Pirates game. Thank you.